Did I tell you what we're doing today? I don't know if I did.
No, you
Oh,
didn't.
I
Because
didn't?
I went to text you to be like, do you want to blind react or should I listen? And I was like, I'm not even gonna ask. I'm gonna blind react.
Okay. Next one I'll have you listen. We'll do like dual research or something. But I'm
Yeah.
happy that you don't know about this because I curated this case specifically for you because it has
Stop.
everything that you would just make your sleuth radar like beam. First of all, it's a
Oh my
case
god.
from the 70s. It's I don't think it's one that you know. It's a case from the 70s. It takes place in Chowchilla, California, and I knew that name alone would just send you somewhere.
It's Chowchilla.
Baby, it's in Chowchilla. That sounds like a critter. It sounds like something I'd see in my
It's a
backyard.
critter.
It's like a chupacabra. I saw Chowchilla last night. That's what I'm thinking of. 70s
Her coat
Chowchilla.
is made out of Chowchilla.
It's Chowchilla. Feel it. It's
It's
Chowchilla.
Chowchilla, darling.
It's that, and then it has to do with a school bus abduction. So a kidnapping off of a school bus.
Oh my god.
All three components combined, I was like, this is the perfect recipe for like a sinister case that Stu is going to be like, let's get in. Let's go.
I'm ready.
Okay, I am going to jump in. Before I do, I thought we could do something really fun. Oh, wait. I have it in my notes because I wanted to shout out one of the creepers from TikTok. Oh, God, I hope I can find it. I have so many damn notes. This is the problem with doing research. Oh, I got it. Okay. Nobody.amp on TikTok sent us a really nice message last night and was saying, like, I love listening to the podcast. I love you guys so much. And it just was really sweet. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to shout you out. I literally commented back. I was like, I'm going to shout you out on tomorrow's episode. So that is this episode. So hi, Nobody.amp. And another thing that a creeper said that I wanted to bring up, I think this was on YouTube. I think it's Elise McKenna. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. They pitched a theory on Aisha Degree, which I had not thought about. Do you remember that case?
Of course.
They were saying, they were like, do you think it's possible that Aisha Degree got hit by a car after she ran into the woods and came out somewhere and got hit by a car, and then somebody panicked and like took her? She was either injured or they killed her. I was like, whoa. That would be real. Because like the whole time we were trying to justify, like, how was this girl who was so scared of everybody able to like just willingly get into somebody's car?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my god.
Sinister thought.
Or they hit her and killed her and then like got rid of the body.
That's what I was thinking of. I was like, they could have hit her and then maybe just panicked because they had a warrant out. Who knows what could have happened? It really would have messed up their life. And they just took the body and she was taken somewhere. It was a theory I had not thought of and I'd never heard somebody pitch. So I wanted to call them out and give that shout out to a creeper. I also thought it would be fun. Hold on. Apple. I'm just running through like my Rolodex right now of all the things I wanted to do because I feel like I haven't gotten to like say much to the creepers recently, but we miss and love you guys and we're so grateful for your support that I wanted to read to you, Stu, some of our 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts.
Oh my gosh.
Do you want to hear a couple?
Of course.
Okay. So this is a recent one. This comes from Arliss B. Let's see. I just listened to the Tika Adams episode, and yes, more survival stories. They go, I listened to this episode while working late, and my goodness, I was on the edge of my seat. I love that there was a happy ending for Tika. I genuinely had tears in my eyes when I heard the baby was born and she was okay. Silas has amazing narrative skills, and Stu is an equally amazing co-host. I have never been so moved by a true crime episode like this. I'd love to hear more survival stories like this. Thank you so much, Arliss, for a 5-star review. That was so sweet. And I'm happy you liked the Tika Adams episode. There was one...
Arliss, I feel you.
I know. I feel like you and Arliss went through a similar experience.
Yes.
Oh, wait, there's... Oh my god, this one's so good. This is a 5-star review from Mrs. Corbett Potter. I hope that's your real name. I also hope you're a teacher. Thrilling is the subject line. I'm going to read this in the exact tone of voice as what I imagine she spoke it as. Today, I lay in bed with the old school flu, feeling sorry for myself. Death scrolling Facebook Reels, or whatever they're called. happen upon your creepy posts. I'm riveted. I dive in head first. I watch them all. Notice you have a podcast. I'm like, yes, this is a must. Find you on Apple Pods. Subscribe immediately. Listen to the latest episode about the Ohio killings. Perfection. I think she meant Idaho. Then, as if some post-Christmas, sick with the flu, not quite New Year's funk miracle, there's a freaking break in the case, and I am like, leaving my body. That was a wild, riveting, thrilling ride. I literally love you. That's a review.
Oh,
that's a 5-star review.
We literally love you too.
I know. I love you for the flair and the drama of that review. That was absolutely spectacular to read, and I'm so happy that you caught that episode.
The review of that review, riveting.
Anyway, I just wanted to start with that because I was like, what a positive, like, fun thing to jump into before we get into the hell that is this case. But again, thank you to the Creepers, and welcome, Creepers, to CreepTime, the podcast with Silas, Dean, and Stu. We're so happy you're back and you're listening. Thank you for all of the support. I will just say, and I'm sure Stu shares this sentiment, we love you and we love the support when you follow and subscribe to the podcast, and when you rate the podcast, as you just heard, that really does help because it helps to boost us. It helps to keep the podcast more sustainable so we can keep covering these cases. And I'm not going to belabor it anymore. I'm going to throw you right in. Are you ready, Stu?
Oh, I'm ready.
The Chowchilla school bus abduction. Okay.
Oh my God.
Right back to that name.
Okay.
This is going to be a ride, so I need you to strap in.
Let me get a couple cushions for my ass.
I was going to say, I was like, honey, I was like, you need padding. You need padding bad. Now, this is a true story that jumps right out of the 70s of Chowchilla, California, where on what was to be a very normal day in a small town, approximately 26 children and a school bus driver were held at gunpoint on a bus and made to exit in what was the largest mass abduction in American history. That I did not know when I was researching. I didn't know this is considered the largest abduction in America.
Wow.
I had never heard of this before I researched the case. Had you?
No. Oh my gosh.
I
thought you were going to say, well, we'll get into it, but I didn't imagine at all when you started telling this that it was more than one child.
I know 26 children were abducted.
Oh dear God.
It's a story that's like out of a movie or something. And I do want to preface that it is a miraculous story of survival and how these children kind of like banded together to overcome what could have been like one of the darkest group homicides in California history. So I will preface with that. This is going to be like the Tika Adams story. This is a survival story. So everyone can rest. No worries. It has a happy ending. But I'm going to dive straight in so I can give you some backstory on the town and who these kids were and eventually what went down on this day, July 15th, 1976. Now, Chowchilla, which, again, I'd never heard of either. It's located in central California, and this was not, like, by no measure was this a place of, like, notoriety, nor was it known to be dangerous. It's like a picturesque 1970s suburban town on a beautiful sunny day in July. Nothing could go wrong until the unimaginable happens. Now, the story begins on Thursday, July 15th, roughly around 4 p.m. So there's approximately 26 children, and they were all between the ages of 5 to 14. They boarded a local school bus around 4 because they were going to get home after attending this like summer field trip to the local pool. And I read this while I was researching it. It was so cute. So this was like a summer program for them. Did you ever have those like in middle school? Yeah. And they liked it so much that the kids actually organized their own petition to extend it. Isn't that so sweet?
Oh, it's so sweet unless the extension meant that this happened.
No. This was, I think this was,
I thought you were like, isn't that so sweet? They extended the camp and then this happened. I'm like,
no, I think the petition happened before this went down. But I'm sure, actually, I think at the end of all this, they did get something. They got some kind of like trip or reward or something for like what they endured. But this was before like the abduction went down, that they were like, we love the summer program because it's just like local field trips to like the pool, local museums, like fun stuff where they can like get bused with their friends to go do stuff over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So they get back on the bus at 4. Everything seems totally fine, totally normal. And now the bus is being driven by Frank Edward Ray, who everybody knew as Ed. And before I get into who he was, I was going to ask you, because I know in my soul that you have a bus driver story. Everybody has like a bus driver story. And if you don't, I've got plenty.
I can only think of like the bus rides that I took, like doing like sports and stuff in high school, just like how rowdy they would get. But I can't think of a driver specific story, but I will say there was somebody on, I guess it was TikTok, that did an incredible like bus driver impersonation of like, y'all sit down. Like,
Snarky Marky. The volume in here is astonishing. Astonishing. Yeah, Snarky Marky.
Dead.
It was dead on. Oh, absolutely. Because that was viral. It's so funny.
So funny.
But it's like dead on. Like that's exactly how they would speak to you.
Yeah.
We had a bus driver who lost his mind when I was in elementary school. He like pulled off the road. I don't know if I've ever told you this. I must have been in like 2nd or 3rd grade. But he was like his first week or something, and he pulled off the road into like some kind of like abandoned parking lot. Parked the bus, got up. I'm not kidding. This is like a bus of literally like elementary school kids, like kindergarten to 5th grade. And he turns around, like stands up and turns around. He goes, "Shut the f*** up!" He goes, "I'm tired of this shit. You're so fucking loud." He was so mad. And we were dead silent because it was the first time we'd had like a school adult yell at us like that. And we were like,
we're probably heard the word fuck.
Well, we were just like, whoa. That's when you know it's serious, when you're like a kid and like an adult, especially like a non-parent says f***, you're like, I'm about to die. So like something bad's about to happen. I think we told people about that. We were like, because we were super late that day too. It like totally derailed the drop-off times. But he still worked the bus, like for the school. He didn't lose his job or anything. I forgot his name. I think his name was Steve.
It takes a certain like personality type to become a school bus driver.
Yeah, well, when we talk about like Ed, the school bus driver, it's actually a really sweet story how he became a bus driver. I think you would think it's cute.
Okay.
Well, let me see. So I agree with you though. Like the bus drivers I've had, sinister backstories that led them to that decision. Ed is more like he was a local farmer who like got older to like, because he's like an older guy, he got to like retirement age, and he's like, I love kids and like I want something consistent in my schedule that's like not too time consuming. I'll be like a local bus driver. That's cute.
That's super cute.
I know.
I admire bus drivers because at some point in their lives they were like, okay, I want a job where I don't have to talk to anybody. And if I do, I'm going to be taking it out. Whatever I'm going through, I can go ahead and just fire away at them. So I kind of have respect for it.
I was like, it's a very trustworthy position to be basically a babysitter, but constantly in control of veering a car off a cliff.
Yes.
It's a trusted position.
Yes.
We did have a bus driver in middle school who like also told us to shut the up, and I don't know what compelled me to do this. This is a secret I'm expelling now, but because I was not this kid. But she literally said, "Shut the hell up," and it got dead silent. And in that moment, I don't think I meant to do this. I said, "Bitch," and she heard it. She heard, and she was like, "Who said that? Who said that?" And like no one was fessing up, so she goes, "I'm driving us back to the school." She drove that bus back to our middle school and got the assistant principal on the bus. And he was like trying to leave work. He's like, "What the hell's going on?" So he had to come up on the bus, and he was like, "Who said it?" And I went, okay, and this is how I'm like a gaslighter through and through. I raised my hand and I was like, "I said it." And he was like, "You really?" So then I went to his office and he was like, "Why did you say that?" And I was like, "Mr. Kalongi, I didn't." I was like, "I just didn't want to delay anybody anymore. So I just said I would take the fall for it, but I don't know who said it." And he was like, "Now that sounds like a believable story." He's like, "I know you wouldn't say it." And I fully was like, "Bitch." Like, I don't think I've ever
That's the
publicly
greatest
said
thing
that
I've
to
ever
anybody.
heard.
So
That is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
it's a true
But the
middle
fact
school
that
story.
You went in and you said, "Oh, I took the fall." Like I can just
Gaslighting
see,
at like 12. Like gaslighting adults.
I can just see you leaving his office that day and like just smirking, walking with your backpack, like so proud.
Oh god, I was playing him like a fiddle. I don't even think I intended to
Yeah.
go in and like lie about it. It just happened as we were talking. I was like, I think this guy thinks I'm a good kid. I think I could sell this. So I just kept the narrative.
I'm never gonna forget.
Like I think the timing of it was just what was so funny because people did erupt in laughter because she goes, "Shut the fuck up," and then I just go, "Bitch," and everyone was pissing themselves.
I mean, I'm pissing myself.
Okay, so I'll get us back on track with Ed. So this bus driver, Ed, like I said, he's a sweet local man. He's a little bit older. So he grew up in Chowchilla. He's like a local. And like I said, he worked in farming for most of his life, I believe. So as he got a little bit closer to like retirement age, he ended up giving back to the community. And he's like, oh, I want to start being a bus driver. So he gets a job working for the Dairyland Elementary School District as a driver. He is beloved. Like, he enjoyed his work. He loved kids. They loved him. He likes the consistency. He's a good guy. So it's devastating to hear just how wrong this all goes. Now, he is the one on this day who picks everybody up from the pool at 4. He's got all 26 kids that get on board to his bus, and he's going to start the drop-off route. Now, pretty quickly into his ride, Ed makes his way onto like the usual road that he goes, and he spots something very strange down the road. There is a white van that is parked dead center of the road that's kind of blocking each side. So like you can't really like get around it if you're a big bus. Now our brains are wired differently because I know that if you saw that, you would be like, fuck that. That's sinister. Like you would floor it. Like any semblance of danger, like you would floor it in reverse or you would floor directly into that van. I'm scared if I see a white van across a parking lot, let alone blocking my only way on a road.
Yeah.
But Ed doesn't feel that way, obviously, because he's a sweet guy from the 70s. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, they're probably like stuck. He's like, their car probably broke down. He's like, let me like pull up behind them and help these people in this random white van. That's what's sad about this. It's very unsuspecting and undeserving. So he pulls up to the white van, pulls to a stop. And as he's doing so, he kind of notices something that's even stranger. Not too far away from this van, there's actually another white van that's parked up the road that's also stopped. And he's like, oh, that's weird. But before he has time to even think about it, or actually even throw the bus into like park, the bus gets bum rushed by 3 men who come running out of that van, dart towards the bus, all with stockings, like pantyhose, over their heads, disguising their identities, and all 3 with sawed-off shotguns that are pointed towards the bus. Ed describes like the feeling of this moment, like his stomach instantly dropped and he felt sick because he had no time to react. And before he could even blink, all 3 of these men made their way onto the bus, and they've got guns on him. They've got guns on the children. Like it happened instantly. Now, the kids are paralyzed with fear because the image in front of them that they're seeing is this gunman who has a shotgun pointed at Ed's temple at the front of the bus. And he leans in and he whispers something audibly. The kids can hear it. He goes, move away from the steering wheel or you're going to get shot. Heart is racing, baby. Heart is racing.
Wait, okay. What time of day is this? Do we know?
Yeah, so he picked them up at like 4 p.m. So this had to be like 4:15, 4:30 maybe at most.
Okay.
Yeah, so
we still have daylight.
We have daylight, but they're on like a rural road, like a back road.
Yeah.
So it's like a pretty secluded area because this is a small town, Chowchilla. Not quite the metropolis.
I was just thinking there ought to be a drinking game for every time you say Chowchilla.
And I'll be saying it a lot. Even when it's not necessary to say, I'm going to find ways to weave it in. I said, now the Chowchilla press came to the scene. We can add that to our Nancy Grace glossary.
Oh my God,
Somehow
yes.
I think she would have said that. Now, they're paralyzed. The kids are paralyzed with fear because the image they've got in front of them, like I said, they've got shotgun on Ed's temple and they've got a shotgun on like all of the kids, basically. Now, this poor old man, I'm going to cry during this. I know I'm going to cry, but he's so scared because he's a very like soft-spoken person. So he like immediately complies and he puts his hands up because he does not want to take a chance of any child getting hurt. So he's not going to try to be a hero here. He can't overpower 3 men who have guns on him. So he just puts his hands up and he's doing everything they say. And he starts moving away from the steering wheel, and he gets directed to go to the back of the bus. And the kids can tell how serious this is because, you know, they're sobbing and it's like everyone's starting to realize like what's going on. And he gets very firm with them, which he doesn't do. And he kind of like raises his voice and he's like, be quiet, do what they say, which is not like Ed. Ed doesn't do that. So he's afraid for them. So one of the abductors gets behind the wheel of the bus and then starts driving the bus. And I think one of them left the bus to go back in the van, and one stays and keeps the gun on all of the kids and Ed towards the back of the bus. So he's kind of like in the aisle just shouting at kids like, shut up, keep your mouth shut. And like there are 5-year-olds on this bus, like little babies. They don't know what's going on. Now, this is really going to send you somewhere. The men who were eventually found to be behind this, the gunmen, it included 24-year-old Fred Woods, 24-year-old James Schoenfeld, and his younger brother, 22-year-old Richard Schoenfeld. This is the most menacing part that I know is going to send you into a spiral. All 3 of these 20-something-year-olds were very well-off kids. Rich kids. Like rich kids who had no reason to do this.
Yeah, because my first thought was like, are they doing this for ransom? Like,
yeah,
what
of course they are, but they don't need it. So it's like, what? Like when I'm talking rich, Stu, one of them had a trust fund worth $100 million in the 70s.
Oh my God!
Like what the actual Why are you abducting children? Like psychotic animals.
Psycho.
Like there's no reason. You have money. You don't need the ransom. Oh my God, it's just. We'll get into it in a little bit, but like I wanted to preface with that just so you know like what kind of people we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, my jaw hit the floor, and I'm like, that's some shit, because I thought it would have been like desperation for, you know, ransom money, but they're just evil. They're just evil people who somehow found each other. So now back on the bus, don't forget they just directed Ed towards the back. So he's sitting there with the kids. They're screaming, but the kids are, you know, seated and they're staying quiet as much as they can. Some of them are panicking and like hysterically crying because they don't understand what's going on. And from testimonies from some of the surviving children, Ed had been repeatedly whispering to them in the back of the bus. He's like, just stay as quiet as possible. And he's just repeating that over and over again, like trying to keep everybody calm. And just to further illustrate like how little some of these kids were, one of the youngest on the bus, she was a 5-year-old. Her name was Monica. She was so confused by the men who were wearing the stockings, like the pantyhose on their head, that she turned to one of the gunmen who has a shotgun in her face. And she said, are you the Easter Bunny? I know. I'm gonna go. I can feel
God.
it. I'm gonna go.
No, girl, this is Donnie Darko.
Oh.
Oh.
Thoughts on that so far before I get into the next phase of what happened in their plan? That's some
I am shocked at how young they are.
babies. I think it ranged from 5 to 14, but...
No, I mean the gunman.
Oh, yeah. No.
I was kind of thinking, like, is this going to be, like, some wacko, like, mountain man and his, like, wife and family kind of thing? They're just looking for more...
No, that's a story I'm going to write for my book.
Know.
I'm going to take that story
Okay.
and I'm going to write that. But no, it is surprising, though, well, for one, that they don't need the money, but two, yeah, that they're, like, kids. They're, like, in their 20s. I shouldn't say they're kids. They're men, but they're young. They're very young.
Yeah, so I'll be interested to, like, hear what the motivation is behind all this.
Oh, it's so... I'll get into it, but it's so stupid. They're also stupid. I'm pissed off at them.
Oh, I'm pissed.
Now, like I said, it wasn't super clear, like, what exactly happened, like, who was where on the bus, but I'm pretty sure from multiple points of research that there's obviously someone driving. There's one guy who's left on the bus who has a gun on the kids, and the other guy goes to, like, move the vans. Now, the bus is driven into... what's described as like a canal or like a bamboo field. I don't know. And that's where they meet another white van, which is parked and waiting. Now, half of the children, including Ed, are moved into this van through the back exit of the bus, and the other half are moved into the other van. and they are both locked into these vans. So these white vans are like fitted inside with like wood paneling, and all of the windows are blacked out. So inside it is completely dark and there is no air ventilation. This is a hot ass day in July.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Now, just to detail like how orchestrated all of this movement was, the kids are led to the back of the bus, like I said, with Ed, and they are instructed one by one to jump from the bus into the van so that they don't leave any footprints during the transition. This is very planned. Like,
wow.
Very well thought out. Now, this is when everything really, really gets dark and wild, Stu. With all 26 children and Ed now locked into both of these vans on a hot day, they are driven around in complete darkness for what was estimated like 100 degrees in these vans.
Oh.
How long do you think they were driven around for?
God, I'm going to pray to God that it wasn't anything more than like 4 hours.
Girl, they were in these vans for 11 hours.
Oh my God.
Heat. No light.
Ooh,
no bathroom. No water.
Bathroom.
11 hours. Having no idea, like, what the hell is going to happen. Are they about to die? Are they taking to be, like, are they going to be taken to be killed? Like, they don't know anything. So you can imagine, like, oh my God, like, what must have been going on in there? Like, it's just sounds in the pitch black of, like, this encroaching darkness while kids are peeing on the floor. Kids are getting sick. They're so dehydrated. They're throwing up. And Ed and the older kids, they think they're going to die, but they're just doing the best they can to try to keep everybody calm through these 11 hours. So what exactly happens next? Now, all of these hours are going by in these vans, and Ed is breaking down inside. This poor little old man is so scared, but he's trying to keep this brave face in front of the kids, and he's just telling them, he's like, it's going to be all right. They're going to let us go eventually. They're just bad people, and they just want to get something from us. But he's got this bad feeling that they're not going to make it out of it. Mm-hmm. Like he's starting to like fall apart because he's the only adult there. So he's just so scared through all of this, and it's breaking my heart to like read it. But eventually, he devises like plans to keep the kids in his van calm with the older kids, where they start like singing. They start like trying to like sing songs together, and they just are trying to like tell stories and just do stuff to like pass the time and like distract themselves from how unbelievably hot it is, how horrific it smells in there, and like kids that are sobbing. It's awful, Stu. Like, it's so horrific. Now, you can imagine what the hell's going back in Chowchilla. Take a shot, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, it's a circus. Like, the parents, they were absolutely going insane. So it's like nonstop phone calls pouring into 911. People from other towns are coming in. You've got parents that are literally flying all over the roads and like on people's lawns because they are searching for these kids and like screaming out the windows because an entire bus of children has disappeared. They don't even know where the bus is. So the hunt is extremely frantic in these 11 hours after no one's seeing the children. The FBI immediately steps in. This is where County was like, we can't do it. We can't do it. We got to get the FBI.
I was going to say, in Chowchilla, they're smoking something and just hanging out. They don't want to be bothered.
I mean, if there's 26 kids that go missing, I think it's warranted to contact the FBI immediately. Yeah. But also, you can imagine like a story like that, how quickly that gets picked up by national news. That would get the FBI involved. Like, that's terrifying for parents. 26 kids and a bus driver go missing. They don't even know where the bus is at this point. They're like, because don't forget, the bus got driven to like some field. It's hidden.
And the craziest part is that like this poor sweet old man,
I know,
is probably in their minds though, they're probably thinking, holy shit, that sweet old man just took our kids.
Oh, absolutely blaming him. Yeah, they think that he like went off his rocker, he lost his mind, but yeah, they're thinking he's the one who's responsible for the abduction.
Yeah. Because
again, they don't have a bus, so they think that he might be on the road still and he's like driving to the border of the state or something, like something crazy. Now, the FBI does get involved, and you can imagine just like how haunting this is for the parents when they eventually do get word that the bus is found, but the kids and Ed are gone, and there are no footprints. They're freaking out, because that's so, like, what the hell? They don't know how to explain. They're like, it's like they vanished off a bus, and the bus is found. They had to find the bus through an aerial search, because it was so well hidden in this field. You couldn't spot it from the road.
That's so crazy.
And the no footprints, but they do find the tire tracks. So they're like, okay, this is much more sinister and serious than we thought, which was that Ed took them. This is like an orchestrated event where clearly a car came and like lured these children and Ed into them like a van. So the parents are losing their minds. They're manic. And now back in the vans, Ed is still on the 11th hour here, literally, trying to calm these kids down. And what's really sobering and like tear-jerking is that the older kids in the vans who were 13 and 14 are also stepping up to console the younger kids, and they're telling them it's going to be okay.
Oh,
Still.
that's so sweet. Yeah. Oh, well,
Help.
Oh, God.
It's babies consoling babies.
Oh, God, that's so sad.
They're like holding the 5-year-olds and they're like, it's going to be fine. Like, you're going to see your mom later. And they're kids. They don't know what's going on. They're 14.
And thank God for that, because it gives the 13-year-olds, the 14-year-olds the drive to like keep on pushing on, because they're distracted by taking care of the younger ones.
Yeah.
And the younger ones who really need it feel like they're actually going to be okay. That's really amazing. That's such
it is
an
incredible.
Amazing experiment of like human connection, I guess.
Yeah, like fortitude. I mean, you would see to the end of this, like the older kids in this group, including Ed, really are the heroes of this story. Like how they step up and their like will and fortitude to make it out of this, despite how bad it really gets.
Yeah.
But that's where they're at. So they hit hour 12 of this hell inside these vans, and suddenly they seem to go off the road. Like they're no longer on pavement, because they're like, the driving got really rough and everybody is getting thrown around up against the walls of this van. And I don't mean to like make light of it, but for some reason I was thinking of our tour van.
Stop.
Which is equally as bad as like our last episode where we talked about the truck almost going off the mountain.
I know. At least with this one, we know that it ends well.
There's a happy ending.
The second you said a white van, anytime
tour
somebody
van.
says van, you know I'm thinking of the tour van.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
No ventilation. Ours weren't that bad, but like, yeah, I did imagine that exact van for sure.
Oh yeah.
What are those called? Sprinter vans? Something similar.
Oh baby, no, we were not in a Sprinter van.
Oh, it's not a Sprinter van.
We were not in a Sprinter van.
We were?
No. We were in like a delivery van. We were in
a catering van.
Not in like a catering van.
Oh.
We were not in something glamorous.
I'm sick. I think that's more comparable to what they were in then. They just like took out the seats and like fit it with paneling and whatnot. So, like I said, they go off road. The driving's getting really rough. Kids are getting thrown all across the van. They're like knocking into each other because it's pitch black. They can't see anything. They're just like knocking into each other. So then the van finally stops, and whoever's driving the van gets out. And then there are like a couple of men who were outside of the van. Both of them are there at this time, both vans. They first open the door. They pull out Ed, and then they shut the door again. So Ed is pulled out alone. And now they would continue doing this over and over again. They're basically opening the door, pulling out a kid one by one, and then shutting the door. And then some time passes, and then they open it again, pull out another kid, shut the door. So these kids think they're about to die.
Yeah.
They're thinking they're getting pulled out and they're getting executed right then and there, like one by one. And everybody is just waiting in the darkness of their van to take their turn to face it. Now, as each kid is pulled out, one of the men who's pulling them out asks them their name, their age, their address, and then cuts off a piece of their clothing. So you know this is gearing up for like a ransom situation.
Yeah.
Now, the oldest kid in the van, his name was Michael Marshall, who I'm going to preface is an absolute hero in this story at 14. He said that all of the kids in this van at the time, like the little kids, were hugging him, like holding on to him and just clinging because they were so scared about being next to get ripped out of that van. And he's trying so hard to like protect them, to keep them safe because they're terrified and he's terrified.
Yeah.
And eventually, as one by one keeps getting pulled out of this van, it comes down to just Michael and that 5-year-old girl, Monica, the girl who was asking about the Easter Bunny. So who he said he physically hid her behind him because he said he could not bear to hand her over to them if he didn't know what was about to happen to her.
Mm-hmm.
So they do open the van again, and they reach for her. And he said he had to physically rip her hands away from his. And he told her, it'll be okay. Oh, no, sorry. They pulled him out of the van, and he had to physically rip her hands away. And he told her, it'll be okay. So then they shut the door, and they took Michael out. Monica, the 5-year-old, is left alone in the van. So they shut the door, and she's now with no one. Zero light. She's the last one there. Finally, she does get pulled out. And then they meet the fate that's coming to them. Before I go any further, I just want to say, while I was researching this, I got to this point because I was reading this like a movie. I was sobbing during the research. Oh my God. Fully sobbing, Stu.
It's so scary. It's so... Oh, God. It's giving me... I know I've referenced this on other podcasts, but like episodes we've done, but like Changeling vibes, like, which is terrifying to me.
Yeah. It's like the unknowing of like the constant feeling of like, are we about to die or are we not? Yeah, especially after 11 hours. I can't even fathom like what that feels like to sit in that space for so long of like, am I about to live? Am I about to die? Like I'm in a dangerous situation for a prolonged period of time.
And imagine how tired they were. Like little kids.
Hungry, thirsty, no water.
Oh my God.
It's 100 degrees in there with like 13 plus kids per van.
It's absolutely awful.
It's hell. It's actual hell. The 20-something-year-old, the guys who did this are like absolute monsters. And I don't even know if it's justified, like what eventually does happen to them. But like I think they should have gotten more. But
yeah,
we'll get into that. So let me tell you what was going on outside of the van while all of this is going down. Now, for weeks to months prior to this, in this plan that the men had been like concocting, they had buried a moving van underground in this like California rock and gravel quarry, which they were ushering these children and Ed into one by one, this underground like moving truck that they buried. Now, the moving van underground is in bad shape because it's under so much weight of dirt, because they had like buried it, but before they buried it, they put like old mattresses in there. They put like enough water and bread and peanut butter for a single meal for everybody, like one meal for everybody, which is concerning if you're being ushered into something underground. So all of these children and Ed, they get crammed into this space, which is also like pitch black down there, don't forget. The 3 men finally get everyone down, all 26 kids and Ed, and they pull the ladder back up, and they shout down and they say, "We'll be back for you." And they shut the top latch, and they move a manhole cover over it, put 2 truck batteries on top of that, which are hundreds of pounds to weigh it down, and then they continue to bury the rest of the van, like the moving van underground, like piling more dirt on top of it. And it's estimated they were about 6 to 12 feet below Earth.
What?
They buried 26 children and this elderly bus driver alive, and they left. Holy shit. I think to suggest that this would be like a parent's worst nightmare would probably be an understatement. It's so it's unfathomable. Your kid abducted off a bus and then is buried alive underground.
I'm like having trouble even visualizing the van underground.
Think like a literal moving van that was like driven into a pit, and then these 3 kids, men, insane. I guess, just filled the whole thing with dirt, like piled dirt on top of it until it's 12 feet over.
It's just, it's diabolical.
It's absolutely horrific. Now, this was the final nail for all of the kids. Like everyone down there, they thought this is over. Like we are going to die. Because they're sitting there in the darkness and the heat. It's still hot down there. So from one of the testimonies of a girl who was down there, she said, she just described like how horrific it was. Just this constant like wailing of cries and panic, and kids are peeing all over the floors. And she remembered praying to God, and she said out loud that if she could see her family again, that she would be the best little girl in the whole world. Mm-hmm. So they thought this was the end, because in total, from the research that I saw, while they're underground, in that darkness, I think like this is after they're buried, a total of 12 to 16 hours would pass of them sitting there. The water's gone. It's swelteringly hot, and they don't have any food left. Like, they ate the food for that one meal. Like, they're not going to last much longer. I mean, they've gone through this now, like, having been abducted at this point for, like, 24 hours. So one of the most harrowing testimonies that I did read was from Michael, that 14-year-old who's also down there. And he said there were times where, like, you could hear children were crying and begging for their parents, and just, like, this chilling, like, constant sound of that in the darkness. But what felt even scarier to him were these moments while they were down there and everybody got quiet. Like, even the little kids just got quiet in the dark, and everyone just kind of sat there with their own thoughts for a little bit. That was when things started to feel very real. Like, everyone was kind of losing the will to, like, keep trying to fight and get out. They don't have any options. They're buried under the earth. So that feeling of dread is setting in, and they did have a makeshift, like, ventilation system down there, which, to clarify, was 2 fans. They had 2 fans that they had built in down there to, like, keep some airflow. Both of those fans die a couple of hours into being buried. So, I think actually this might have been a good number of hours. Like, after hour 10, the batteries of the fans die. So everyone is truly, like, running out of air ventilation. So clearly there's this intention for Ransom that we talked about, where these idiots who, like, loaded everybody into this underground van, they thought they were going to, like, send over, like, proof of the clothing, like all the clothing they snipped off, and they were going to get this ransom, but they have to keep these kids and Ed, I guess, alive for a period of time. So you're probably asking yourself, well, where the are they? Like, all these hours are passing and all this time has elapsed, so they must already be in, like, negotiations with police. They're not. So they are so overworked from all of the hassle of abducting all of these children that they go to sleep.
Oh my God.
They take a very long nap. After they just buried 26 children and an old man alive, and they said, I think I should rest. I think we should rest.
Oh my God. I can't wait to, I'm not going to look now, but I can't wait to look up a picture of these f***ers.
They look like inbreds. They do.
Of course.
They look like inbreds. Absolutely. Even though they're, like, rich kids, but, I mean, wouldn't be the first time rich people have inbred. I'll cut that. Now, yeah, so I couldn't even fathom that after all of that, they were, like, ready to rest their head on the pillow. So the reason that they went to sleep was they did try to call 911 from, like, a remote line, and they were going to demand $5 million in ransom in the exchange for, like, the lives of the kids and Ed. Not forgetting that they have a $100 million trust fund, one of them. But they couldn't get through to 911 because the lines were jammed all day and all night from families and the media who were calling about these kids. So they just decide, they're like, we'll try again later. Let's just rest. Let's take a break.
Oh my God.
Sick. So that's unreal. Now, back in the underground van, things went from bad to worse very quickly. This is when things get really dire, because beneath all of the weight of the dirt that was laid on top of this decrepit-ass truck that they buried, the roof is now starting to cave in slowly. And things around them, like the supporting siding of the van, it's breaking. So they're not going to just suffocate to death. They are literally going to be buried alive under dirt once this all caves in on top of them. So this is when, like, full panic really starts to set in the final hour. And Ed turns to the older kids, and he really bucks up, and he was like, if we're going to die, we are going to die trying to get out of here. So they spring into action, and they start to stack the mattresses that were left in there, right? All these dirty old mattresses, and they climb on top of them to try to get up to, like, the latch, like, where the manhole cover is. And they're trying to move this with, like, a piece of wood that had broken off from the siding of the truck. Now, the cover with the batteries on top of it, it's, like, several hundred pounds. So I think Ed is stabilizing, and Michael, the 14-year-old, is up there, like, with the wood, trying to basically, like, cram the thing open. And they are throwing, like, every ounce of strength that they have into, like, trying to get this open. And all the kids are cheering him on. And they're like, you can do it, Michael. You can do it. Like, they're really trying to band together. Now, they're up there sweating and working at this desperately for what they described as hours they're trying to do this because it's their last resort. Suddenly, one of the kids shouts, "Michael, it's moving." The top manhole cover finally starts to budge just a little bit. At least he has like enough like room where he can like get the wood in and kind of like ledge it over if he really like throws his strength into it. So they keep going even harder. And they're just doing everything they can, everything that's possible. When finally they get it open just enough that Michael can squeeze up like through the cover to the top, which don't forget is also covered with dirt. Now, above the cover, he like wedges his way up as best he can. There is a wooden box that's like placed over it, like where the batteries were that they kind of like pushed over. So Michael pushes through that box to get it open, and he's just met with like dirt, like he's buried beneath earth, but he does not give up. They never give up through this. So Michael just starts digging. Like he just starts, and they're cheering him on still because he's like telling everybody like what he's seeing, what he's doing. And he would dig for an hour straight until finally, Stu, they hit sunlight.
Oh my God.
They hit a beam of sunlight pours into the pitch black of the truck and everybody starts cheering and crying. I know. They're going to get out. They're going to get out of there. He finally got a pathway open. So one by one, Ed, he stays in and he hoists every single kid up onto that mattress. And he gets them up to Michael, who helps pull them the rest of the way out. All 26 children and Ed finally get their way out of there. They make their way to the surface, filthy, exhausted, but free.
Oh my God.
Am I not putting you through the ringer right now?
Well, I'm just like, now where do they go? Like, do they run?
Well, so
like oh my God.
The men, the thing is, like, when they were getting up there, they're like, we don't know what's going to be outside of here. Like, for all they know, the men could have just been like perched out there, like waiting for them with guns in hand. They're just taking a real risk. Like, this is our only chance. If we're ever going to get out of here, we have to do it this way. But luckily the men, like I said, were sleeping. So they're like way off site. So when all the kids and Ed get to the surface, it's daylight. It's the next day. And they're just standing there in the sunlight in the middle of nowhere in this quarry. And they're filthy. And they're like, I guess we just walk. I guess we just walk.
Yeah.
So once they all get to the surface and they kind of like look around, don't forget this is like a working rock quarry. So they're spotted by a man immediately. He sees all 26 tattered children and this elderly man trekking through the rocks. And he audibly spoke out loud in disbelief to them. The world's been looking for you. I'm sick.
Oh my God.
I'm sick. Get this away from me.
This really is a movie. I'm amazed they've never made a documentary or a movie about
They did
this.
make a movie on it, but it was in the 90s. I wish they would remake it because it would be so much better today. It'd be such, oh my God, it'd be so much better to do this today. Because it is an incredible story. I mean, it's a piece of American history, honestly.
Yeah.
Now, as you can imagine, police descend upon the area, and everyone is immediately taken to the nearest safe location, which ironically happens to be the county jail.
Oh my God. I was like hoping to God you said like a McDonald's or something so that they could get some food.
Well, they're like springing into action.
County.
Not county. They took him to the county prison because they were like, this is the safest location. They weren't put in like cells, but they were like ushered into holding rooms because they were like, there we can do like interviews with all of them while it's fresh in their memory. But we can also like bring food and water in. We bring medical folks in. So they realized that they had been driven 100 miles outside of Chowchilla. They're all brought to the station to be evaluated and cooled off because they're so overheated. A lot of them had heat stroke. They're interviewed. Everyone is accounted for. Everybody lived. Like, I mean, obviously they didn't have enough food for like all these kids to like sustain them immediately. So somebody went out and immediately grabbed juice and apples for everybody just to get something in them.
Yeah.
And outside of the treatment for like the heat stroke, like I said, and of course like shock, they were relatively physically unharmed, 100% survival through all of that.
That's insane. I can't believe not even one kid died.
No, I mean,
from something random.
Yeah, well, they didn't die, but they certainly all went on to have some pretty severe mental health issues later in life, as you can imagine. Like a lot of them had like long-term fears of the dark, even through adulthood. Some of them would end up getting mixed up in drugs and alcohol a little bit later in life, but then found their way through treatment. But a lot of them actually had really big issues once they had families of their own, and they couldn't They like they had separation anxiety with their children.
Yeah.
Which all of this is like totally fair. I could absolutely see why.
Totally. I was actually thinking earlier, if the little girl, the Monica, has she ever like I guess she must have for the story. Like, has she gone on record about or given adult recounts of like what the day was like?
Oh, absolutely. So many of
Oh,
the kids have.
gosh.
Yeah, all of the kids have given testimony. A lot of the kids actually end up testifying once this goes to court, which is incredible.
Oh my God.
I think most of them did. So, well, that brings us back to like what you're probably wondering: what happened to our little friends, the ones who were sleeping through all of this?
The three little
the
piggies.
f***ing idiots who buried these children. Now, initially, it was really difficult for anyone to actually give like a useful witness testimony because don't forget they all had the pantyhose on their head, so nobody actually knew what they looked like. But it did not take long for a team to go back to the site where the kids were found, and they start to investigate the truck, right? And they put two and two together with their suspect list, and they realize they're like, who would have access to this quarry? Who would have enough like time and like, I don't know, after hours access to bury a moving truck? Fred Woods, the grandchild of the owner of the quarry, who had the trust fund of $100 million, he would have a key to that quarry. Now, what's even crazier is that once the FBI does get involved, because again, there was like such fame around this, like nationally at this point, the FBI actually brings in a hypnotist that day in the police station to speak with Ed, who hypnotizes him to recall key information from what happened when they got abducted, specifically so he can recount the plate number on the vans. That's crazy. A hypnotist that can like basically like get into your subconscious memory so you can give them vital information so they can track down who was driving the vans.
That's incredible. That makes me want to be hypnotized.
I know. I was like, you can get anything out of me if you could do that. Like that's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait.
I couldn't remember a license plate to
teach?
save my life. Like, yeah, how to become a hypnotist in
Literally.
2023?
My boyfriend's just shaking.
So that's wild. And eventually this does lead them to the warrant to search the mansion of Fred's dad, which not only do they find the guns used in the kidnapping, but they would locate a document entitled Plan, which detailed the entirety of the plan and a ransom note that they were planning to submit. So details within the document would show that this had been meticulously planned for like over a year. And of course, it's linked to the other two idiots who were involved. And what was shocking was that these rich kids, it was not their first run-in with the law. So like 2 years prior to this, I think there was a warrant out for them for Grand Theft Auto. So they're just like rich kids who are like plotting crimes. Like they have no reason to steal these things, to abduct children, or like cause mayhem. They're just wealthy kids who are bored.
They're just bad apples.
They're bad seeds, Stu. Bad
seeds.
So now once word of this like gets back to police, and they start searching like Fred Woods' mansion, that's when the boys realize like the news has caught on to them as suspects at this point. So they all kind of scatter in different directions. Now the youngest, Richard, who is like the little brother, he's 22. He actually feels remorse. And it sounds like from everything that I was able to piece together that he was kind of like the one. I mean, he still did it, but he was the one who was kind of coaxed into like coming along. Like he was there, more so there for the ride, not quite the leader, not the brains behind the operation. So he turns himself into police. James and Fred, they like fully flee California separately. So James went somewhere and got arrested like pretty quickly. Fred makes it all the way up to Canada to try to go into hiding in the mountains. And he's caught by the Canadian police and then brought back to California. Now, to make this hold up in court, they needed verification from the children. Like they needed like concrete evidence that these were the men outside of like an entire plan they found in the mansion that detailed this. So what they do is they bring all three men into a videotaped lineup, and they're instructed to repeat phrases that the children told police were shouted at them, like "shut the hell up," "sit down or I'll shoot you." Like the three men are told to say that in front of the 26 children from behind glass to verify that those were the voices the kids heard on the school bus. And they were. So
That's so torturous
I know.
for little kids. Oh my God.
It's the 70s, baby.
Yeah.
Anything's game. So 2 years of this investigation would go on with court proceedings. And eventually, I think 27 charges are brought upon the 3 men. 27 counts of abduction and kidnapping with the intention of ransom for all 3 men, with the addition of 8 counts of bodily harm, for which they're found guilty of, and they would all see life in prison without the possibility for parole. Now, here's where things get a little wonky. So, although all 3 men are found guilty, they do get sentenced. Their attorneys, again, rich kid attorneys, are able to find some legal loopholes to appeal this, to suggest that the bodily harm charges are not sound, because they go back to the legal definition of bodily harm, and they're like, bodily harm didn't technically occur here because none of the children are suffering from lifelong injuries as the result of like their heat stroke and like the abduction and the burial. So you can't really get them on bodily harm. And I'm like, what about the years of therapy and like intensive like counseling they'll need to recover from this? That's a long-term injury, I would say.
So is bodily harm like it has to be a sustained thing that you'll deal with the rest of your life?
I think so, yeah. It would have to be like an injury that is going to like affect you forever, basically. I think.
Wow. Okay.
Or at least affect you like even like in the short term. Like
long term.
Well, maybe like short term too, if they broke your leg or something. I think that could be considered bodily harm, but technically none of the kids had broken bones or like deep cuts or wounds, let's say. They just had heat stroke, which they recovered from like within a couple of days. So I think that's what like edged it out of bodily harm.
Okay.
So outside of the mental health injuries that they probably inflicted, I had a joke here, but I'm not going to say it. I was like,
I can always tell. I see that little corner of your mouth go up, and I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on?
I was going to say, I was like, what happens to these kids after all this? And I was like, they make a podcast.
Literally. Stop.
All right. So although the appeal was successful, it would reframe their sentencing. So they are still sentenced to life, but they do have the possibility for parole, I think, for all 3 of them, which is insane. So after about 36 or 38 years, Richard and his brother James did appeal, and they both get out on parole, while Fred Woods still remains in prison. This is the trust fund boy. Mm-hmm. Now, according to police, who still keep tabs on Fred Woods in prison, he is just as much of a piece of shit inside the system, which they say is a true reflection of how somebody would act if they were to ever get out of the system. It's how they behave on the inside, which is a reflection of like what they would do if they got out. He is a repeat offender of like causing trouble, starting fights, sneaking in contraband. Specifically, he gets caught with porn a lot in prison and cell phones.
Nice.
And he's constantly so all of the businesses, the family businesses, got left to him, and he's apparently running them or trying to run them from inside prison. Why? You're not seeing any of that money. You're in prison.
Do that.
I guess. Well, he has obviously people on the outside who were like running the businesses, but he's still the owner, I suppose, and still like keeps tabs and makes phone calls and like sneaks in cell phones. It makes no sense why, but that's what he does. So that's what his life is like now. Now, of course, police wanted to figure out like what the hell the reason was that they like went about any of this. Like, why are rich kids abducting children? Now, according to the story that eventually came out at the time from James and Richard, they were rich kids, but they got into a habit of spending money senselessly, and they got themselves into some pretty bad debt, which they were too scared to go to daddy for to take care of. So they were like, we've got a great idea. Let's abduct children. Let's hold them for ransom.
They must have been high.
God, I hope so.
I hope.
Now, I wanted to like just recap what eventually happened to Ed, because like I said, Ed did get out too unscathed. He's fine. Ed and Michael, the 14-year-old, would receive numerous awards, specifically from the governor of California at the time for their their heroic acts and their acts of bravery to rescue these children. And the government actually ends up organizing a celebratory trip for all 26 of the kids and Ed to go to Disneyland.
Oh my God, no way.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And
they better be on a PJ for this.
I was going to say, I was like, so I hope the parents drove everybody separately.
Yeah.
From Chowchilla. Well, so Chowchilla actually created a day, which is known as Ed and Children's Day, where they host an annual parade in celebration of their brave acts and everyone returning home safe. Aww. And I'm going to cry again.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, I mean, this was a happy ending, but like I said, it was not without some severe damage to a lot of the kids and their mental health. I think later in the 70s, there would be childhood psychologists and psychiatrists, rather, who were interviewing the kids who noticed consistent symptoms through almost all 26, which were PTSD and persistent phobias of the dark, many of which I said carried into adulthood as the children grew up. And a lot of them reportedly sleep with nightlights to this day because they have such a long-term fear of the dark. Most of them, I think, eventually do seek like long-term therapy after all of this. I think some of them have even like published books. And one of the sweetest parts about this is that Ed, actually years down the line, he does go on to live a very long life. He eventually passes, I think, in 2012 at 91. He bought the school bus. He bought the school bus because he just felt like it was going to be sold, but he felt that it was like an important like relic of like their survival. So he paid $500 of his own money at an auction in Chowchilla, and he bought the bus, which he kept like in his possession for a good number of years, like in his like a shed in his yard or something, a really big garage, I guess. And eventually he like turns it over to a museum where it still sits to this day, and you can go see it. And I believe they also have one of the white vans in that museum as well, which you can also go see.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and all of the kids who Ed helped rescue that day, they stayed in contact with him through all of those years, and they would visit him. They would consistently call him throughout his life, and eventually when he does pass at 91, several of them were by his bedside, which is incredible. I know, and I think either just before or after he passed, a lot of the kids went to the bus in the museum and they signed it and wrote messages to Ed about how thankful they were for what he did on that day.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. Oh my gosh. It's almost like, it's so amazing that he bought the bus too, because it's like he like reclaimed that day a little bit.
He did,
for everybody.
Totally. It's and I do think it was important to like hold on to that, because it's like, what a great way to turn it around in your mind and remember that day for like what you did to survive and to save children, as opposed to what was done to you. It was just, it's a beautiful ending to the story. We don't usually finish these with beautiful endings, but that was so sweet.
Creepers, I've never seen Silas have tears of joy, only fear. So this is great.
Dude, that is the story of the Chowchilla 1976 birth abduction.
The way you just said that, I'm cracking up about you tearing up, because what was it you said to me one time? You were like, I'm doing that thing where I tear up because it's so scary.
I do that,
where you just have a single tear.
All the time I do that. Yeah, if I get really freaked out by something,
about that all the time.
I cry because things get... I don't even cry. I just like my eyes water when I get very scared. Yeah. But it's not like I'm crying. But right now I am crying because it's crying. So sweet. Yes.
It is so sweet. You know what I think would be really interesting, like from a psychiatrist perspective, is like how, at what age, or if they could discern like any patterns between the kids of like different ages of which ones are doing a little bit like better or worse later on.
I would imagine the youngest probably had the most trauma. Probably, I think that was probably very formative for them. Not that it wasn't impactful and formative for like the 13, 14-year-olds, but it seemed like through all of that, of course, they had a little bit more like gumption in their wits, because they're just older kids and the 5-year-olds are babies. So how could you even process what happened to you? It's such a scary scenario. Like, they spent hours and hours and hours in darkness and heat. Piss
so scary.
all over the floor.
Oh my God.
It sounds like an Econo Lodge.
Stop. I was like, creepers, I saw the corner of the mouth go up. I was like, wait.
Also, this weird side lighting I have right now, I just keep like noticing what I think is a dimple, but maybe it's a wrinkle. It's like coming in my cheek. Do I smile?
No, you have a dimple.
I have a dimple?
Yeah.
News to me.
I don't know if these are...
You have
That's not really
dimples.
dimples.
Those are dimples.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. You do. What a pivot. Wow. That was my fault.
Wow.
It's like
Chinchilla
26
dimples.
children.
I mean, chinchilla dimples. That's actually the newest LA procedure. Did you hear? She went to the doctor and she got Chowchilla dimples.
She got a Chowchilla dimple. A Chowchilla dimple. I wonder if you could visit. I wonder what Chowchilla is like today.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at a picture of this bus. Hold on.
Oh, you should look up pictures. They have pictures from inside the moving vans, too. That was buried underground. That you really should look up.
That's what I need to see.
You need to see like what they were staying in, and it's illuminated because it's like flash. But yeah.
Oh my god!
And you can see the top is starting to cave in and like break in on them. That was like happening under the weight of the dirt. Oh, and those boxes that you're seeing in that picture with little holes cut on top, those are makeshift toilets.
Goodbye.
Those are cardboard toilets.
That they made? Did they make them or did?
No, the the three geniuses put those in there for those kids. God. That was their mercy. Oh, I've actually never seen the van. Ooh, that van is bad. That van is bad news. Ew, God. Oh my God, it's disgusting.
Also, these guys look so gross. I can't.
Oh, you found the men.
Yeah.
Inbred. Wretched.
Inbred. Yeah. Absolutely disgusting. Oh my God.
The little kids.
Wow. This is crazy.
Dude, don't they look older than like 22, 24?
Yeah, they do. And I don't know if that's just because the 70s.
It might be the 70s. Yeah, they all look a little bit older. I was like, that's 24? Damn. It's a rough 24 for a rich kid. It's the hairline.
Wow, this is such a crazy... Look at the group of them. Oh my gosh.
Isn't this nuts that this isn't talked about more often? I've
never heard of this in my life
until
and this is crazy.
It. Yeah.
This reminds me also, Creepers recommendation, if you're looking for a good doc or you, Silas. There's a documentary about a hostage, like a bus hostage in Germany, I want to say, that I just watched recently, where it was like a standoff for like similar amount of hours, like crazy, where they were just like standing there and like a couple of people like darted and got off the bus, like, and we're just I'll send you the link. I can't remember
what Stu is referencing is Sandra Bullock's 1990s hit Speed. That's what she's talking about.
It's a documentary.
Speed is actually such a great movie. I think that was Sandra Bullock's first movie, but she looks the exact same as she looks now.
Oh, that movie's incredible.
I love Speed with Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
It took me years to like put two and two together, but I do want to watch this documentary because I love the idea of don't love it, but I love the idea of watching a hostage documentary.
It's called 54 Hours.
54 hours, my God.
54 hours. Wow.
That would be a really interesting case for us to cover. Actually, we should do a case that's like a hostage situation. I know this was kind of a hostage situation. This was an abduction, but that would be really interesting. Did you ever watch Money Heist?
No.
Oh, Money Heist is so good. It's a Spanish language drama, but it's on Netflix. I watch it with subtitles because I don't like when they do like the overdub. It's too like disjointing. Yeah. But it's a bank. It's like these people who were held hostage in a bank for like weeks for like one of the most intricate heists in like bank history.
Oh my gosh.
And like you're following two sets of like ensemble. There are the people who are the hostages and the people who are like the perpetrators who had been like training for this with like a mastermind who's behind it. And the brains behind the heist is also like dating like the lead investigator who's the negotiator on the case, and she doesn't know it.
Oh my God.
It is.
That's insane.
Oh God, Stu. It is. I will literally rewatch that with you anytime. We'll do like a Netflix
not based
party.
On a true story or based on a true story?
Money Heist. Oh, I don't know if it's based on a true story. I don't think it is. It's too intricate to be based on a true story.
Yeah.
But it is such a crazy ass show. It's so good. I think that I haven't seen the third season. I have to go back and watch that because I think the third season they get away. They're like they finally got out of the situation, so now they're just like living with the money, but they're still on the run. I don't know. It was more interesting in the bank, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to watch it.
You really do, you and John. But Creepers, that is it on the Chowchilla abduction from 1976. We'll come back at you next week with another episode. I think I'm going to drop a premium episode tonight. The one of Jack and I covering the Avril Lavigne conspiracy.
I am so jelly. Like,
again.
That
I'm like, baby, you have a login. You can listen.
I know. I'm gonna. That conspiracy has thrown me for a loop for how many years has that been going on?
So I think it rose to like mainstream media in like 2011, 2012. But the research I found was dating back to 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And my whole goal was to convince Jack that the conspiracy was true. Like that was my goal, is to be like as convincing and keep the conviction in my research to the point where I was like, this is absolute truth. And he was so convinced by the end of it.
Oh my God. I have to listen. Wow.
He was losing his mind because I feel like I made a compelling case. But Creepers, if you are not a premium subscriber, please go check that out if you would like to join. We would love to have you. We love to make premium content for you. You can listen to that episode and many more to come. And Stu, should we just send a send off and say happy Friday, everybody?
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh my God, we didn't talk about the leprechauns. Oh, what a missed opportunity. Why didn't we do some kind of like...
I know.
We should have done... Oh, that's Scotland. I was like, we should have done the Loch Ness Monster.
We can do we can just celebrate tonight by watching the horror film Leprechaun.
We could do that. I got invited to go out to Brennan's, which is a place that has turtle racing on St. Patrick's Day.
Why?
I guess it's an Irish like pub style spot in Santa Monica, and I guess every Thursday they do turtle racing, but they have a special St. Patrick's Day turtle racing event.
Only in Santa Monica, California.
You can get everything here. It's worse than Vegas.
I am actually I told you my friend is coming to visit.
Yeah.
I'm like terrified to see. DC's a big drinking town. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it on St. Patrick's Day. We're probably just going to walk around and have a viewing of the actual the actual Irish bar is called Shenanigans. So we're going to go look at the shenanigans and
get your binoculars out, have a fun time, be safe. Creepers, have a great St. Patrick's Day, and we will catch you on another one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.